Hey everyone, this is First Warning Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Pan. Just thought I'd do a quick weather update today. Not that there's anything impending heading our way, but I've seen all these rumors on Facebook of this potential ice storm next week, or even this weekend, and it's kind of laughable to me because there's really nothing there. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I'll tell you what's going on and kind of why I think you're seeing a lot of people got to jump on something that's very improbable this far out into the future. We'll start with what's going on right now, because in the near term, it's warm. We've got temperatures in the mid 50s out there. A lot of warm air is going to be surging into the eastern half of the country over the next couple of days. We'll take a look at the models here. This is the GFS model showing a big warm up in the eastern half of the country. And when you get a big warm up this time of year, it's often because there's cold air moving in somewhere else. And if you look carefully, huge Arctic outbreak in the western and central part of the country will be moving in later this week into the weekend. You can actually see the Arctic front moving into the southeast. I mean, that's a pretty big Arctic front. That's cold air all across the middle of the country. And if you look in the Carolinas, this is Friday afternoon. We're talking about highs probably getting into the 70s in a lot of locations. So this is going to be a huge warm up. Now, the Arctic front tries to move in, but we get into a little bit of what we call cold air damming, or a wedge. And you can kind of see that cold air getting pushed down here. Now, this pattern is conducive to cold air damming or a wedge, but it's really hard to forecast this far out how strong that cold air damming or wedge is going to be. So let's take a look at the southeast close up. This is a look at the precipitation as well as temperatures. And you can see pretty mild. We've got southwesterly winds here. This is why it's going to kind of blowtorch this week. And we'll see temperatures in the 60s and 70s. But as we go into the weekend, we don't see any winter weather over the weekend per se, Saturday and Sunday, because the Arctic front is to the west. We may get wedged in. You see the dip in the isobars here? That's a sign of cold air trying to push down from high pressure to the north and east. So what you have is cold air beginning to move down here, but it's not very deep or very strong at this point. This looks very weak, at least in the GFS model. And as we go out towards Monday, the wedge tries to build stronger, but it's still not strong enough to produce ice, in my opinion, because the cold air is kind of trapped further north. You can see some icing up in Virginia, West Virginia. Now, there was one run yesterday that had ice over the Carolinas, but it was one run of one model. So it's hard to jump on board, and you're talking 7 to 8 days out. And then you see as we go into next week, the Arctic front finally gets through here by the time we get to next Tuesday. So it takes a while for the Arctic air to truly get in here. And one of the problems you run into in forecasting this far out ice storms, I'll just show you another look at this. This is another look from the Iowa State site. You can see the big jump in temperatures here early in the week before the cold arrives. You can see temperatures shooting up. We're pushing 70 degrees here by Friday afternoon, so really cold air. But then you can see that occur after that. Temperatures going down pretty quickly. But notice 32 degrees is down here. You don't see any temperatures here below the freezing mark. And last time I checked, you have to have freezing temperatures to get freezing rain. So it's a little odd that we're seeing so much emphasis on freezing rain. Right now it looks like a cold, chilly rain at this point. But it doesn't mean the pattern isn't conducive for ice. It just means it is incredibly difficult to forecast anything that specific so far out. And part of the problem is, I'll show you something I call the ensemble forecast. What you're looking at here, these squiggly lines, this is the ensemble forecast from the GFS. The spread, you see these lines that are spread out, those are the 22 members of the ensemble. It's basically 22 models all run together. And what we try to do is we take this black line, which is the mean, which is the middle of all those runs, and that kind of gives you the mean. But if you look carefully, some of these ensembles, especially next week, there's like a 30-degree spread in the temperatures. Some of them have temperatures in the 60s, while other ensembles have temperatures in the 30s. But notice the red line, that's the freezing mark. A lot of the ensembles do dip down to the freezing mark at night, but very few of them dip down there for daytime highs. So it's going to be really hard for me to kind of forecast ice this far out when you have such uncertainty in the model guidance. And you can see how close the ensembles are short term. This is just one of the factors of forecasting long range. The farther out you go, the air increases. And when you're talking about ice, you're talking about something that is extremely hard to form. It's one thing to say a winter storm could occur somewhere in the southeast, but in ice, you need exactly 32 degrees below at the surface. You need a certain temperature at 5,000 feet. And you're talking 1 degree changes at certain altitudes can have huge impacts on the forecast. So it's just impossible to forecast so far out. And really, as of right now, the models have been flip-flopping all over the place, which even leads more credence to not jumping on board these models ahead of time. It's certainly something we'll keep an eye on, just because we have these signs of cold air wedging taking place in Arctic air, which is very shallow and sometimes not forecast very well in the models. But don't put a lot of stock in this ice storm talk. It's just right there. It's not there right now. It just isn't. And if I were to tell you it is and isn't going to occur, I'd be lying to you, because the science is not that good. Okay? If you look at the guidance here from the GFS ensembles, it's just as likely next week to be 65 and sunny as it is 32 and freezing rain. Both of those are statistically equally possible. So I don't know why people focus on the lowest numbers and the highest snow and rain when they never focus on the highest numbers and the least amount of snow and ice, because both are actually statistically equally possible of occurring. So that's just to give you my 2 cents. Of course, if things change or start trending in that direction, we'll start talking about it. But a week out, it's just not really worth getting caught up in. I'm just looking at the trend more than anything. I would never say ice. I would say right now cold rain and something to watch early next week. And it's not this weekend. Let's be honest. This is going to be really, I think, more Sunday into Monday based on what we're seeing right here. The system that is moving across the country is going to have to develop, and we'll have to see how cold this Arctic air gets to the south and how big this dome of Arctic high pressure is, which is building over Western Canada now. So long ways to go, but I want to squelch some of the rumors because people are asking me about it, and I almost have to laugh because it's just not something I would even think about talking at, even if I'm a big-time snow and ice lover. Not that I would ever wish ice on anybody. It's just I know the drawbacks in the models. As much as you love snow, you got to like getting the forecast right more than liking snow. You can't have that cold air bias that a lot of people have. So we'll keep an eye on it, but in the meantime, enjoy our taste of spring weather. December is going to start on a warm note. I'll see you today at 4, 5, and 6 on NBC Charlotte.